And then Luke just like crushes this droid. It's amazing. Like as far as I know, I don't think we've ever seen a Jedi use like Force crush before. It's more of a Sith thing. But of course, Luke is now forging his new path, and I assume he's going to reform the Jedi Order, and he's probably going to allow them to use more techniques that in the old Jedi Order wouldn't have been allowed. So I'm very curious to see how he's going to reform the rules in the Order, if we see that, which I hope we do. And just look at this shot. Like, this is wallpaper material. In fact, I think I'm going to make this my wallpaper. Just that image is something that so many generations of fans have waited almost 4 decades to see. Prime Luke, like Luke in his absolute prime. Like, post Return of the Jedi, Luke has been this elusive thing that we've all been curious about, to see what will it look like to have Luke fully actualized. Like, we almost got there with Return of the Jedi, but his full self-actualization began at the end of Return of the Jedi, because you saw the arc he took from A New Hope until Return of the Jedi, from like a whiny kid to this like mature, serene Jedi. And this is full, like, I assume this is like fully Grandmaster Luke now, because this is 5 years after Jedi, and he's either built the temple by now, or he's in the process of building it, and he's searching out younglings. I still can't believe this is happening, to be honest. It's been 2 days at this point, and it still feels like some kind of crazy fever dream. It's like what Boba said in that episode, this isn't a spice dream. No, it's not. And thank God it's not. So then they do the dramatic reveal of the face. He takes the hood down, and I was still partially wondering, like, is that going to be Sebastian Stan under that hood? I really didn't know what they were going to do. And so we see his face, and like, to be on reflection and looking at it, like, in the moment, you're just like an emotional mess. Like, just I'm not afraid to admit that I was crying, and I think a lot of us were. And I've seen many videos now of people doing it, like grown men just being reduced to a blubbering mess. It's kind of funny. You can't see his face that well because your eyes are glazed over from tears, so you're looking through tears at the screen. So it's almost like probably looks perfect to you like that. But yeah, like in the moment you're just so overwhelmed with emotions, and then when you look back on it, it doesn't look perfect. Obviously, it's a TV show. They don't have the budget that the movies do. But to be honest, they did a pretty darn good job with the budget they had and the time. But then again, I've seen already, and it's only been a couple days, I've already seen fans do deepfakes that actually look better than this. And it's like, and I keep wondering, and they did that with Tarkin and Leia. They improved those scenes from Rogue One with deepfake. And it makes me wonder, like, if one guy in his basement with a computer can do it that quick, why aren't Disney using it? Maybe is deepfake like a right? Is that a trademark? Like, is it tech that's owned by someone that you have to license? I don't know. No, it's not perfect, but honestly, and I've heard a lot of this sentiment from a lot of fans, it's like everyone's saying it's not perfect, but I don't care. Having an imperfect face on post Return of the Jedi Luke for at least one scene after not getting him in the sequel trilogy was just it was just amazing. And then Grogu like peeks around the corner from the chair at him. Yeah, see, for the most part, when he's staying still, his face looks good. But then when he starts talking, that's when, and like, I guess the eyes look a little bit soulless, and the mouths are always like, that's the perennial problem with CG, is it's like the hardest thing to do. But this just feels so Luke. Like, this is what we were missing from the sequels. Like yeah, there's people that defend his character decisions in that movie, and I think there's a way that he could realistically get to that point, but we just didn't see any of it. So I don't know if they're going to ramp up, like if they're going to go in that direction still or not, but in this time period, just seeing right after episode 6, seeing how Luke would be, how he would be acting in this moment was just a thing of beauty to behold. And he's like, "Come, little one," and he sounds interesting. He sounds like, again, we find out at the end credits that this was indeed Mark Hamill, and I don't know if he obviously didn't do the fighting scenes. He might have done a couple of these scenes where he's standing there, because that's all he has to do is stand there, but apparently he did the voice. And if you've heard Mark Hamill lately, his voice doesn't sound anything like it did in 1983, and it's so much rougher. It's like, I don't think he's a smoker, but I think just age and all the strain on his voice from being a voice actor has really changed it. He sounds more like the Joker these days than Luke. So I think what they did, because it sounds a little bit modified, I think they had him record the lines and then they softened the voice digitally later. So again, they could have also used that deepfake audio tech where they could have just had a computer listen to all of his lines in the OT and then spit out some fake lines, but I think it's better that Mark actually got to voice him. I'm so glad. Like, it turns out he was lying to us in that he had like a Variety interview, I think a year ago. He was talking about the show, and because that was when they had just announced that Tamora Morrison was cast. And he was saying he looked really sad. I think this was all an act, and it just shows how good of an actor he is. He looked really sad, and he's like, you know what? I think my days of Star Wars are over, and it's like it's heartbreaking. And also, he's sitting there in black robes. He's wearing Return of the Jedi robes, and we should have seen that as a hint because that was clearly a year ago. That was him doing a subtle hint at this that we wouldn't see until a year later. And then already on Twitter, he's saying, like, hey, is there anything good on TV? And like talking about how it's amazing that they were able to keep the secret for a year. Bravo, Mark, for that subtle hint a year ago, dude. I really did believe you that you were done. I'm just glad he's got vindicated. Like, you can tell from some of the behind the scenes that he did not have the greatest time working on the movies. And I think a big part of it was the loss of Carrie Fisher. Like, I think that really dampened his excitement and affected him because he said, like, I saw him live when I was at Star Wars Celebration, and he was talking about how he thought he'd have 30 more years with her, and we all did. We all thought she would, she'd lived much longer, like just she was like 90. But I think filming these movies, or the sequel trilogy, I think she was under a lot of stress then, and that's what made her take up drugs again, which I think ultimately killed her. So it's understandable that Mark kind of lost some of his excitement when he thought, oh, we're getting the band back together, it's us three again. And then, but the way that the movies were written were like they weren't all together, so it wasn't exactly a reunion. So he was probably a little disillusioned by the whole thing, and you could tell some of the behind the scenes he wasn't happy with some of the direction Rian Johnson took with his character. So I'm just so happy to see him vindicated and his legacy restored. He can leave this earth knowing that his character's legacy has been upheld, and he got to see Return of the Jedi Luke come back, which is something I'm sure he wanted to see forever. And yeah, obviously it wasn't him and his body doing the scenes, but I think he's just happy to have his likeness and his voice attached to it, and we're all happy for him. Sorry about that tangent, but back to the episode. I mean, it's not really a tangent, it's relevant. But then Din says, no, he doesn't want to go with you. And then Luke, obviously knowing what he's saying because he's probably speaking to him through the Force, he says he wants your permission. And yeah, again, his face, little rubbery. Again, I don't care. We got Luke Skywalker back. And then this is like a gut punch to J.J. Abrams and Rian Johnson. Like one of the big criticisms of the sequel trilogy was it seems Rey and like they just use the Force in like so cavalierly. Like they were trying to say that like anybody can use the Force just whenever and however, and like she was able to do all these things with no training and seemingly just can pick up things so easily, and that seemed to kind of fly in the face of established lore. So, and they've kind of done this already with Ahsoka, where she said something like, I don't remember exactly what she said, but she said something similar to this. And this was just them doubling down, like, no, talent without training is nothing. Like, you have to be trained. We showed it. I mean, it was in the prequels. They show younglings, they are revealed to have a connection to the Force with their like midichlorian count or whatever, but they have the potential there to tap in. But just because they have the potential doesn't mean they aren't going to be able to master it. Or, I mean, they aren't going to be able to do it instantly. They have to go through years of training. So this is clearly Dave Filoni and John Favreau putting their foot down like, no, this is George Lucas's vision. It always was. You need the training. Luke did. Anakin did. So they're reaffirming how the Force works in this show. Because, I mean, Dave was George's apprentice, basically. He was his protege, so of course he's going to know the ins and outs of how the Force works because George himself told him how it works. And I do like, apparently Jon Favreau doesn't do anything without approval from Dave Filoni, which sounds like that should be done with everything now. Like everything should be funneled through Dave Filoni, and he should be signing off on things because he knows what he's doing. And then he says, "I will give my life to protect the child." Well, yeah, I mean, at this point in time, there's really not meant. There's like he's one of the last Jedi out there. And I wonder how they're going to incorporate Ahsoka. Like, I am dying to see a conversation between her and Luke, where I heard this quote from someone. They said that Ahsoka can tell Luke about Anakin's life, and then Luke can tell Ahsoka about Anakin's death. and how tell her and reassure her that he was brought back to the light before he died, because she was under the impression that after she fought him, she just thought he was stayed evil forever. So she was probably had her whole worldview shattered after that. So it'd be great to see is if Luke tells her, "Hey, no, my father was brought back to the light." Maybe that'll make her change her mind, and maybe she'll go back to being a Jedi. I just want to see her, and I want to see a show now with her and Luke rebuilding the Jedi Order. Just please that straight into my veins, Disney. And if they're gonna do that, I hope they recast, because you can't, if they're gonna have Luke as a main character or a pretty major player, you can't keep using the CG face, because you want the actor to emote, and it's not going to work, and it's going to cost a lot to keep doing that. So, or you're not going to have his hood up the whole time. I mean, you could do that, but it would be weird. Just do it. Just bite the bullet. Cast Sebastian Stan. He's already in the Disney family with his playing Winter Soldier. He looks like him. He's a good actor. Just do it, man. Everyone wants it, and it could happen because, I mean, Rosario Dawson was fan casted for Ahsoka, so if fans cry out enough for it, it could will it into existence. Yeah, and then he says he will not be safe until he masters his abilities, and Din is reassuring him, like, that's the one you belong with. He's one of your kind. And then he says he'll see him again, and this scene got to me too. It got to a lot of people where he's just like, he reaches out to touch his face but his helmet's on, and then Din finally takes his helmet off knowingly in front of people and in front of this stranger because he wants to see his face. And it's a beautiful, it's very reminiscent of the scene in Return of the Jedi when Vader's like, let me look on you with my own eyes. And he takes the helmet off and looks at him. Yeah, this really made me emotional. Like, I was already emotional from Luke. This whole scene was an emotional roller coaster because you're already on an emotional high from Luke, but it's tears of joy, and then it immediately just right away switches to just tears of sadness, like on a dime, because they're going to split up, and they've been together for now 16 episodes. So it's amazing how your tears of joy switch over to tears of sadness just without skipping a beat. Yeah, it pulls on your heartstrings. He reaches out and tries to touch he's touching his actual face now. It's like, why do you do this to me, show? He tells him it's time to go, and he's like, oh, and whines, and his ears go down. Don't be afraid. And then, that's like a dog that sniffs your leg or something. He just grabs onto his leg, like, or that's kind of like me when I was a baby. I used to do that. I used to grab my parents' legs and go for a ride. It's like a separation anxiety thing, and it's such an emotional scene, dude. As if it couldn't get any more emotional. Like, you had the Luke reveal, the splitting up of Grogu and Din. Like, you're like, there's no way I can get any more emotional. And then to top it all off, R2-D2, you hear, and then he comes around the corner, and then it's just another wave of nostalgia. So it's happy tears, sad tears, and then happy tears again. I love watching all the reactions on YouTube where people are already crying, and then they just like, because it's just another thing on top of everything else. So well done. I don't know where C-3PO is at this time. Maybe we'll see him at some point, but just seeing R2 again, and I like how Grogu goes up to him, and it's like, oh man, they're gonna hit it off. They're gonna probably be buddies now. And well, I mean, there's also the theory that they probably recognize each other because Grogu was trained by many masters at the Jedi Temple before Order 66, and right before someone saved him. So he probably saw R2. They saw each other around the temple. So because he was Anakin's droid too. So they probably recognized each other. Or he's probably like, oh no, it's another one of those things that hit me with a stick. Surprising he didn't pull out his little like taser thing and try to shock him. Yeah, it's just what a wonderful scene. Grogu puts his arms up like, pick me up. And then R2 starts beeping and does that thing where he goes back and forth and left and right and like jiggles. That's all. That used to be, there's somebody in there when that does that, and that was obviously Kenny Baker before. May he rest in peace. But when you do that, you have to have someone in there to go back and forth like that. But it just adds so much character to R2. Luke picks him up, says, may the Force be with you. And then you got this, like, just amazing final few shots where there's no dialogue. And it's cool. You see all of them in here, and Din's the only one not wearing a helmet, which is a complete reversal to what it used to be, where the other two had their helmets off and he kept it on. And he'd be like, what are you doing? And then now it's flipped here where he has it off and they have it on. Yeah, it's such an emotional scene. He walks away and Grogu's watching him from over his shoulder. It's like when a pet's being adopted or given up or somebody moving away. And then it ends with Luke holding Grogu and R2 in the elevator, and it shuts and cut to black. Wow, what an experience, man. What an incredible episode. Like, what a great early Christmas present, and just the thing we needed in 2020 for how crap this year's been. Like, this was the bar none the best thing that's happened this year. Directed by Peyton Reed, the director of Ant-Man 1 and 2, and bravo, sir. Like, it's he redeemed himself too, because everyone was saying that the weakest episode this season was episode 2 that he also directed with the spider. I quite enjoyed it as like a little side quest, but yeah, it didn't move the plot forward at all. But bravo for making arguably the best episode of the season. So you turn that around. He's now going to be like, I heard someone say that he's going to be like seen as like a god now among the fan community. Like, oh, this is the guy that brought back Luke. Wonderful directing decisions with the slow reveal of Luke, and that last scene is just what a beautiful topper to this whole season and this whole show. And then it says, and Mark Hamill in the credits, and it's like, oh wow, he did have a part in this. And there's another actor that was credited. I think he was from the Planet of the Apes movies that provided like the face, basically the scaffolding for them to put the Luke face over him. And then there's a end credit scene, which I completely missed because I was watching it and I shut it off and I went to go talk to one of my friends about the episode. And he was talking about this scene at the end, and I'm like, wait, what scene are you talking about? And he's like, oh, you didn't watch the end credit scene? And I'm like, no, I didn't know there was one. So then I went back and watched it, and at that point he had already described it to me, so I was like, crap, so it wasn't as big of a surprise. But this was crazy. After everything that just happened, to top it all off, then you get a shot of the twin sons, and then it goes over, and it's Jabba's palace, and it's like, whoa, what are we doing here? It shows in there, and you got some Gamorrean guards. They're not as fat anymore. Maybe they're all starving because Jabba's not feeding them, or I mean, he can't feed them because he's dead. But yeah, they're all skinny. They probably just repurposed the Gamorrean guard suits from earlier in the season, the fighters. So, but maybe you could have at least added a belly on them because that's how they were in Return of the Jedi. And then you see, which at first I just thought it was a random Twi'lek, but you see Bib Fortuna, it turns out, is sitting on the throne, and now he's fat, which is pretty funny. And my first thought was, didn't he die? Like, I thought he was on the sail barge with Jabba and everyone when it exploded in Return of the Jedi, so I assumed he was dead, but I guess maybe it blew up, maybe he jumped off into the sand and survived, I don't know. But he's back here, and my favorite part of this, the little detail, is that he's being played by Matthew Wood, the like main sound engineer guy at Lucasfilm. He works with Skywalker Sound, does all the sound effects. He's basically the new Ben Burt, and he's most known for playing the voice of General Grievous and the droids in the Clone Wars show. So, and I looked at his credits and I had forgotten about this, but this is him reprising the role. He played him in The Phantom Menace, because the main actor that played him in Return of the Jedi, he's obviously not alive now, but Matthew Wood played him in one scene in The Phantom Menace where Jabba was sitting there at the beginning of the pod race and Bib Fortuna standing next to him. Yeah, that was him at the time. And that was his first acting role, was Bib Fortuna in Phantom Menace. So it's pretty cool that he got to play him again as Fat Bib Fortuna. Bib Fatuna. I don't know, it's dumb. But then, I mean, I love this. The set looks just like they went back in time and filmed on the same exact set. They just recreated it wonderfully. But you know what's happening here. It's basically like, it's exactly like that Robot Chicken sketch where Boba comes back to the palace after he gets out of the pit. And I don't remember that whole scene entirely, but like, I don't know if he goes and kills everyone, but he does that whole dancing sequence when he's back in the palace. So you hear screaming, and then it's revealed that it's Fennec Shand. And you can see that girl in the background with that pink hair, she was from the special edition scene that was added in that scene where Boba's like with a bunch of chicks and like he touches one on the chin. That was her. And then you see the shadow of Boba, and it's like, oh dude, this is cool. And he says, Boba, I thought you were dead. And one criticism I guess you could levy at this is he doesn't sound like Bib Fortuna, like at all. But I mean, it's been a few years. Maybe his fat has like changed his voice. I mean, that doesn't really make any sense, but it's not a big deal. He's a minor character. And then Boba just blasts him in the face. Just boom. Bib Fortuna done. So Matthew Wood came back, reprised the role, and died. And then he just grabs him, throws him off of the seat, or the throne, I guess you could call it. And then in another absolute wallpaper-worthy shot, Boba sits on Jabba's throne, and like, I mean, just look at this shot. It's incredible. And again, like I said, what just fitting timing for what happened with Jeremy Bulloch. Like, he had just died, like a day before this episode, or actually it might have been even on the day. But he may he may have died, but his character lives on now. Like, he got out of the pit. His character was redeemed after his kind of embarrassing quote unquote death from that movie. He's got his redemption, and now they're teasing more of him. So what I mean, just a great win all around for fans of. I mean, these two have always been like my favorite characters, Luke Skywalker and Boba Fett, and just seeing them both get their due diligence was just unbelievable. And then it ends with, says the Book of Boba Fett, and you're like, what? What is that? What does all this mean? And then it says coming December 2021. So there's a little bit confusion about what this means. Like, is that a spin-off show about Boba Fett, like becoming the criminal overlord? Like, is he gonna rule over the criminal empire or the Hutt clan now that he is basically squatting in Jabba's palace? Like, what on earth does this mean? People thought, is this like announcing a book? And I'm like, no, I think it's announcing a show. It's probably called a book because Dave Filoni used to call. He worked on Avatar: The Last Airbender, and when he did that show, each season used to be called a book. So I feel like he's probably doing a similar thing. So what's confusing, it's coming out December of next year, but so is Mandalorian Season 3. So people are wondering, is this... Because, like, we didn't get the normal credit scene. We didn't get the concept art. We just had a black screen. And then you had this. So people are wondering, is Mandalorian Season 3 this? Maybe they're going to clarify in a few days or something, and maybe they're taking a year break from Mandalorian, or is it going to air at the same time? Are they going to alternate between the Book of Boba Fett and Mandalorian Season 3? I don't know. There's so many questions that I hope they clarify soon, because we don't even know what this is. Maybe it's a movie. Maybe it's a Disney Plus movie. I don't know. Whatever it is, it's just exciting that we get his character back. And it actually feels more impactful now that Jeremy Bulloch is gone, and that we are getting to... And they're continuing his legacy with another actor. It's just wonderful. Maybe we can see him actually have some kind of an arc, like close out his arc that was started in Clone Wars. They could actually do some flashbacks. Like, we never got to see. I still want to see it. I want to see him tell the story, and I'll probably be in the show of how he escaped the Sarlacc. Because that's something everyone, or a lot of fans have been wondering about. And there's so much concept art and fan art of it. And we can get flashbacks where Daniel Logan can... Like, that'd be great if he gets to don the armor again, because he's worn it at cons and stuff. But he's never actually gotten to wear it. He played little boy Boba, but he hasn't gotten to wear the armor yet. So, be great to have him don it again. So we'll see what comes of this. I don't know if this means... Like, I hope it's not a year break, or a 2-year break. Like, if they take a break from Mandalorian, we aren't going to see this continue. I do think this is splitting it... It's splitting the show into other, like, multiple shows now. It's kind of a... It's a springboard for the future, what they're doing. Because I'm wondering if Baby Yoda's going to come back into the show, because this entire show was kind of based on the father and son relationship between the two, and it hinged on that plot of him trying to rescue him. And it was 2 seasons, and it was like he loses him, or he finds him, and then he loses him, and he gets him back, and then he loses him, and then he gets him back again. So it sure feels like the end, but I don't think it is. I think Season 3 could just not have Grogu in it, and it could just be about Din and the other Mandalorians trying to retake Mandalore. That's probably what it'll be. And then Grogu could be with Luke in the Ahsoka show, or maybe they'll have, like I wanted, it was a New Jedi Order show. Luke's training new Jedi alongside Ahsoka, but that show wasn't announced. I thought maybe they'd hold that secret. Like the Boba Fett show announcement, they probably would have announced it at that event, but they were probably holding it back so it wouldn't spoil this. But yeah, we'll see what happens. I'm curious, and like with all the other shows coming out, like Rangers of the New Republic and all these other things. So, and I'm going to make another video about what I think is going to happen next with all these characters. So yeah, I have talked way too much for this episode. I think I'm going to wrap it up. This is going to end up being way too long. I might, you know what? I might split this up into 2 because it's too long. I went on too many tangents on topics that could have been separate videos, but oh well. What did you guys think of this incredible episode? Like, was it your favorite of the 2 seasons? Are you sad like I am that the show's over? Like, it feels like it went way too quick, like 8 weeks in a row, it felt like Christmas morning every Friday morning. Like I would stay up like till 2 a.m. Thursday, or technically Friday morning, to watch it. And now that's not going to be a thing again. And the funny thing I heard was someone say, "Oh man, we got to go back to the real world now." Like, yeah, unfortunately, we got to go back to the real world, especially in a time like right now, which we wish we didn't have to. But yeah, do you guys think that next season is going to be? Oh, I'm sorry, that's my cat. Do you guys think that next season is going to be about Boba Fett, or is this a separate show? Comment down below your thoughts. Did you cry? Like, admit it, you probably did. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. Let me know what you'd like to see me cover now. Like, I'm going to have to figure out what I'm going to do now that the show's over, and I'm not going to be doing breakdowns. I'm going to have to start scripting things and making other videos. But we'll see. So I'll see you guys in whatever video I make next. And for the few viewers that I have, thank you for sticking with me during this season. And I'm glad that I started this once the season began. I was inspired to after the season premiere. So thank you all for watching my coverage of this entire season, and I'll see you in whatever I make next. Thank you for watching.